I now recognize Mr. Mfume from Maryland for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Chair Winstrup, and my thanks also to Ranking Member Ruiz and all others who collaborated to make sure that we could have this hearing today. I want to thank the witnesses for their participation. Mr. Radcliffe, welcome back. Mr. Chairman, the COVID-19 pandemic has underscored in many ways that the Chinese Communist Party's growing influence is absolutely contrary to America's interests and to America's values. If we as a Congress fail to meet this moment, I fear that we will undermine for some time to come our ability to respond to the next public health crisis and to protect American interests both at home and abroad. We've got a long road ahead of us. However, in the last 2 years, congressional Democrats, as the majority party during that time, working with President Biden, did lay the groundwork to make sure that we take decisive action necessary to safeguard and to advance our health, our geopolitical, and our economic interest. In October of last year, the Biden administration announced its national security strategy, which includes, as most of us know, a 3-part plan focused on outcompeting China. And Mr. Chair, I would ask unanimous consent that that national strategy be entered into today's record.
Without objection.
The first step of the plan was to invest in strengthening American competition. President Biden delivered on that, rolling out initiatives guided by the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act to strengthen American manufacturing and American supply chains, all, mind you, while solidifying America's technological leadership on the global stage. The State Department also launched, as we know, the China House Initiative, which brings together China experts from throughout the State Department and security officials to help the administration responsibly manage competition between the U.S. and China. The second step of the plan was to work with America's allies with common purpose and with a common sense. President Biden delivered, convening, as we know, the leaders of Egypt, Cambodia, Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, the EU, Italy, the UK, Mexico, and Canada to emphasize that combating China's global influence must be a team effort, to which, by the way, they all concurred. The third and final part of the plan was to put resources to defending America's interests abroad. The President delivered, including in his fiscal 2024 budget proposal to the Congress, comprehensive investments in the Indo-Pacific region's critical infrastructure, as well as investments focusing on shoring up American defenses in that region. Dr. Lowenthal, you're by all counts an expert in intelligence matters and have a robust understanding of China's influence in the global order. I appreciate the recommendation in your written testimony advocating for a national intelligence officer. I appreciate the chair's comments that if, in fact, there is a similar position in place, that we ought to look at expanding that role. Can you tell this committee, sir, and the American people what you think is the most important tactic that this Congress can use to counter the Chinese Communist Party?
Well, I think it's, excuse me, Mr. Mfume, I'm recovering from a cold. I don't have COVID, I promise you. It's less a tactic than a strategy. We need a strategy for dealing with China, and it's a difficult issue because we are entangled with them economically. They are a competitor. They are a rival. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily an enemy, but we have to figure out how do we outcompete them without resulting in overt hostility. And you have to also remember that anything that we do is going to have a reaction from the Chinese. So when President Biden tries to control the chip industry, for example, so that we're not supplying a rival with the technology that they need, which makes good sense to me. We did the same thing to the Soviet Union during the Cold War very successfully. The Chinese interpret that as an act of hostility, which if we were all sitting in Beijing, we'd probably agree with. It's important, certainly as an intelligence analyst, to understand how the other side is going to react. But I think we need a strategy. And I think we have elements of that strategy. I think the AU The United States-British-Australian alliance is part of that strategy. I think that's being successful. I think our relationship with India is part of that, is successful. But this is also, we have to be prepared, just as we were during the Cold War. This is a long struggle. This is not going to wrap up in this administration or the next administration. This is a long-term struggle. But I think if you look at it objectively, would you rather be China or the United States? I'd still rather be the United States.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Mr.
Lowenthal, Dr. Lowenthal, my time has expired. Mr. Chairman, there's much to be done, obviously. I just want to invite colleagues on both sides of the aisle here and in the larger body to work together in a thoughtful manner to develop national security solutions based on putting the American people first. I yield back. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I now recognize Ms. Maliotakis from New York for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the witnesses who are here today. What is equally as important as the CCP's actions